The turkey knife was still in my aunt's hand when she said it. "Ava, go find another table." The words sliced through the chatter and clinking glasses, leaving behind a silence thick enough to choke on. Then came the laughter, soft, polite, venomous, the kind that sounds like perfume sprayed over rot. I stood there holding a bowl of mashed potatoes like it was a shield, watching their smiles stretch too wide. To them, I wasn't part of the family gathering. I was the afterthought that showed up anyway. The dining table glittered beneath the chandelier, crystal glasses, gold-edged china, place cards handwritten in perfect cursive. There was a chair for everyone but me. The kids' table, as they called it, was a flimsy plastic thing shoved near the laundry room, one leg duct-taped, the whole thing wobbling like a secret barely holding up. Every inch of this house screamed money, order, reputation. Brick colonial perfection, HOA-approved holiday wreath, the smell of wealth baked into every corner. And yet, I was still the outsider in my own bloodline. "I'm family," I said quietly, hoping my voice didn't tremble. My cousin Thomas leaned back in his chair, smirking. "You're adopted," he said, drawing the word out like it was a disease. Laughter again, sharper this time. Aunt Sloane, queen of passive cruelty, added, "Which means you're family. Adjacent." The silverware chimed as forks hit plates. My pulse pounded in my ears. The air was so tight it could have snapped. Then, from the far end of the table, came the solid thunk of a cane against the floor. Every head turned. Grandpa Ray. He stood slowly, old but unbreakable, wrapped in his cardigan like armor. A retired judge, a man who'd sent killers to prison and politicians to tears. His eyes, steel gray, scanned the room until they locked on me. "Ava sits at the head," he said, voice deep, final. "It's her table." The silence was instant and absolute. You could hear the cranberry sauce jiggle. Uncle Brent's jaw tightened. "Dad, sit down. Don't start this." But Grandpa didn't move. "No," he said, his hand gripping the cane. "We're done pretending." Then suddenly the lights went out. The house plunged into blackness. Gasps, a few shrieks. Someone knocked over a wine glass. In that darkness, I felt a hand, warm, trembling, brush against mine. Grandpa's voice whispered close to my ear, low enough for only me to hear. "You're not who they told you are." Something cold and sharp slid into my palm. A key. Its metal teeth pressed into my skin. I felt a tag attached to it, 317B. Before I could ask, the power returned. Everyone froze as if time itself had caught them mid-sin. Grandpa raised his wine glass with a hand that didn't shake. "To truth," he said. His eyes flicked toward me for the briefest second, and in that look I felt both warning and trust. Dinner resumed in a suffocating quiet. No one spoke except to murmur about overcooked turkey or pass the salt. The laughter had died, replaced by tension so thick it felt alive. When dessert came, Aunt Sloane leaned in close, her perfume sweet and toxic. "Keys don't change blood," she whispered. I gripped the metal harder until it bit into my palm. Across the table, Grandpa nodded, barely, but enough to tell me he'd seen. That we were now conspirators in something I didn't yet understand. After dinner, I slipped out to the front porch. The November air was sharp, the kind that cut through coats and pretense. The lawns across the street were perfect squares, trimmed and smug. The kind of neighborhood where everyone's smiles hid secrets. My phone buzzed. "You okay?" It was Maya, my best friend, my one real person. "Same Thanksgiving nightmare?" I started to type back when the door creaked open. Uncle Brent stepped out, face wrapped in a forced smile, like a man used to pretending. "Leave the key with me, Ava," he said softly. "For safekeeping." My stomach dropped. "What key?" I asked. He smiled wider. "Don't play games, kid. You wouldn't even know what it opens." The porch light flickered. Behind him, the silhouettes of my relatives appeared through the frosted glass, like a jury waiting for a verdict. His hand twitched toward my pocket. Before I could move, a voice thundered from inside. "Touch her, Brent," Grandpa called, "and I unseal everything tonight." The words cracked through the quiet like lightning. Brent froze. His face twisted into something ugly and human. "You old fool," he hissed, but he stepped back, retreating toward the door. Unseal what? The question burned in my mind. The wind picked up, rustling the dead leaves along the driveway. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled without a storm. The whole world seemed to hold its breath. When I finally slipped back inside, Grandpa's chair was empty. His glass was still half full, a thin smear of red at the rim. The seat was warm. He had been there moments ago, and now he was gone. I asked where he was, but no one answered. Hours later, long after the house had gone silent and everyone had retreated to their perfect bedrooms, I lay awake in the guest room, staring at the ceiling. The key rested on my nightstand, gleaming faintly under the lamp. My phone buzzed once more, an unknown number this time. I hesitated before opening it. The message was short, terrifying in its simplicity. Go to storage 317B before sunrise. Come alone, or your mother's secret dies with me. I sat up, heart slamming against my ribs. My mother's secret? The woman who died when I was a baby? The woman no one in this family ever mentioned? The house creaked softly as if listening. Down the hall, I heard the faint echo of a door closing. I picked up the key, its metal now warm from my hand. I didn't know what waited for me at 317B or who had sent that message. But one thing was suddenly absolutely clear. Everything I thought I knew about this family was a lie, and before the sun rose, I was going to find out why. The night was still bruised with darkness when Maya's old Civic pulled into the cracked parking lot behind the strip mall. The world felt half asleep, streetlights buzzing, a sliver of moon caught between power lines, and the distant hum of refrigerators from the 24-hour diner across the street. Ahead of us loomed the storage facility, a maze of metal doors lined in perfect orange rows, each identical, each holding its own secrets. But only one, 317B, seemed to breathe. There was a faint mechanical hum coming from it, like the low purr of something alive. Maya leaned against the steering wheel, blowing into her hands. "You sure about this?" she whispered. Her voice trembled slightly, and I could tell she wanted me to say no. "No," I said honestly, gripping the key Grandpa had given me. "But I have to know," she exhaled, half laugh, half sigh. "If this turns into a Dateline episode, I swear I'm haunting you in your next life." I almost smiled. The keypad at the gate was icy, its buttons stiff. I typed in the code Grandpa used for everything, 0417, his wedding anniversary. The red light blinked green and the gate groaned open. Inside, the air was colder, heavier, the kind of cold that felt deliberate. We found 317B near the back, half hidden under a broken security light. I slid the key into the padlock, my hands shaking so hard I nearly dropped it. The lock clicked open with an echo that bounced off the metal walls around us. When I lifted the rolling door, the sound it made was pure horror movie metal. Loud, scraping, final. A smell of dust and paper filled the air. The small fluorescent bulb overhead flickered to life, bathing the unit in a pale yellow glow. Inside sat a single shelf, a fireproof safe, and one cardboard banker's box. Neatly folded on top was Grandpa's old gray cardigan, the same one he wore every Thanksgiving. The smell of his aftershave, cedar and something sharp, was still on it. For a second, I almost forgot why we were there. Then I saw the envelope. A thick manila file sat on the shelf, its edge stamped in red ink. Carter, confidential. I ripped it open. The first paper was a birth certificate. My heart tripped over itself as I read the names. Child, Ava Lilly. Mother, Lily Carter. My supposed aunt, the woman no one spoke of after she ran away 20 years ago. And the guardian listed below, Ray Carter. The next page was an adoption decree, sealed and then amended. The signature, Ray's. My throat tightened. The third document made my hands go cold. A 23andMe test result printed in color, a line circled in red pen. Parent-child match, Ray Carter. My mind splintered. Grandpa is... my father? Maya's mouth fell open. Ava, are you sure? Maybe it's fake, but the documents were stamped, notarized, official, real. Every line screamed truth. The key turned easily in the safe, as if it had been waiting. Inside was an old Sony camcorder, a USB drive labeled Willow Creek, and a sealed affidavit, signed and dated just 2 months ago. My fingers shook as I hit play. Grandpa's face filled the small screen. He looked tired, older, his eyes ringed with something deeper than time. If you're watching this, Ava, he said, voice low and rough, then the house has turned against you. They will call you a mistake. They will say Lily disgraced us. They will say I lied. And they'll be right. I did lie. I lied to protect you. Tears burned behind my eyes. His gaze felt alive, as if he could still see me. A sound broke outside. metal footsteps on gravel. I froze, finger hovering over pause. 2 voices, low, male. I turned the volume down. Grandpa's voice continued. Your mother didn't run away. She discovered a shell corporation, Carter Foundation Front Accounts. $32 million stolen from the scholarship trust. She traced it to Brent, Uncle Brent, the family golden boy, the philanthropist. The man who told everyone integrity was his brand. The roll-up door rattled suddenly, hard enough to rattle my bones. A gloved hand curled under the edge. Maya grabbed the light and killed it. The unit went dark. My pulse thundered in my ears. The door lifted 6 inches, then a foot. Boots appeared in the slice of light. A familiar voice hissed, "She's here! Thomas!" My heart kicked into overdrive. I shoved the papers into my jacket, every page crinkling against my chest. Maya, thinking fast, yanked off her boot, slid the USB inside, and stomped it back on. The camcorder clicked softly as I shut it. The door rose higher. Thomas's pale face appeared, eyes wide, almost gleeful. "Found another table yet, cousin?" He sneered. "Go to hell," Maya said, and before he could react, she kicked the bottom edge of the door down. It slammed into his fingers. His scream echoed through the hallway. We ran. Our footsteps pounded against concrete. The emergency exit bar exploded open under our weight, alarms shrieking as we burst into the alley. Freezing air hit us like knives. We sprinted between dumpsters, lungs burning, hearts clawing for rhythm. A black SUV screeched around the corner, tires spitting gravel. It blocked the alley's mouth. Headlights cut through the dark, pinning us like prey. The driver's door flew open. Uncle Brent, face flushed, veins tight against his temple. From the passenger side stepped Aunt Sloane, immaculate even now, her lipstick a perfect slash of red. She stepped closer, heels sharp against the asphalt. "Give me the key, Ava," she said evenly. "And whatever Ray gave you, now." I backed away, clutching the box. "What's going on?" Her eyes hardened. "You don't know what you're playing with." Brent took a step forward, voice dropping. "You think Ray told you everything? He's not your savior. He's the reason your mother's gone." The words hit like ice water. "You're lying, am I?" he snapped. "Ask him what really happened at Willow Creek." Before I could answer, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown caller. I pressed it to my ear. A nurse's whisper spilled through the line. "Are you Ava Carter? Your grandfather, he just coded. He's asking for you." My stomach twisted. "I'm coming." "There's one more thing," she said quickly. He left a message. "He told us to tell you, the will activates at midnight." The line went dead. In the silence that followed, Brent and Sloane exchanged a look. Panic, anger, fear, I couldn't tell which. Maya tugged my sleeve, whispering, "We have to go. Now." As we ran into the darkness, tires screeching behind us, the key burned like fire in my pocket. The words echoed in my head, each one a ticking bomb. The will activates at midnight. The morning sun rose over Maple Grove like a false promise, painting the manicured lawns pink and gold, hiding the rot that lived beneath the white fences and freshly washed SUVs. Before I even had time to breathe, my name was already echoing through the neighborhood like a siren. On the Nextdoor app, the posts multiplied faster than gossip at a country club. Emergency vehicles on Willow Creek. Anyone else hear about the break-in near the storage units? Saw Ava Carter running through the alley at 4 a.m. Looked suspicious. Police, please check. I had become the latest suburban scandal, a trending topic in a town that pretended to have no sins. By 8 in the morning, people weren't just whispering my name, they were weaponizing it. Maya and I hid out in her family's garage, the only place left that felt remotely safe. The walls were stacked with Costco towers of paper towels and canned soup, a fortress of suburbia that suddenly looked like salvation. We spread everything across the hood of her dented Civic, the DNA test, the affidavit, the ledgers, the birth certificate, and my mother's old notes written in blue ink. Each line of her handwriting trembled with the kind of hope only the doomed have. The last page stopped mid-sentence, meeting at Willow Creek office. If anything happens to me, follow the money to... The rest was smeared, water-stained, a single fingerprint marking the edge. It wasn't just unfinished. It was silenced. I barely had time to process it when a sharp knock rattled the garage door. 3 short taps, then 1 long. The rhythm felt intentional, like a code. "Police," a man's voice said. "Open up." Maya peeked through the side window. "It's Chief Danner," she whispered, her face pale. "The same man who coached Little League with my uncle. The same one who'd smiled while ticketing me for a broken taillight and told me to smile more." His cruiser idled behind him, and beside it stood Thomas, my cousin, my tormentor, his hand bandaged from where Maya had crushed his fingers last night. He leaned against the car, holding up his phone, already filming. I could practically see the caption forming, "Adopted girl loses it again." I took a breath and cracked the door just enough to see Danner's squinting eyes. "Do you have a warrant?" He smiled without warmth. "Just need a friendly chat, Ava. Your grandfather had a medical event. Thought you'd want to cooperate before things get messy. Maybe let this whole circus calm down." I gripped the edge of the door tighter. "You can talk to my lawyer." "Don't make this harder than it has to be," he said, his tone shifting, the smile fading. His gaze darted past me, trying to see inside the garage. "Where are the safe contents, Ava? The USB, the files?" Maya met my eyes and gave the smallest shake of her head. I closed the door. The lock clicked like a heartbeat. Danner's shadow lingered for a long time, but eventually the sound of boots faded, replaced by the hum of gossiping neighbors stepping outside in their robes. Inside, I was shaking, but not from fear. It was adrenaline now, the kind that makes you stop being prey. "They're scared," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Maya tapped the USB drive hidden in her boot. "We should go to the press." "Leak everything," I shook my head. "Not yet. Grandpa's affidavit says there's an emergency guardianship clause. If the foundation's funds are compromised, I become interim trustee, effective midnight unless contested," she blinked. Meaning by tonight," I said, holding up the paper. "I'll control the Carter fortune and every secret tied to it." Outside, engines revved. Through the tiny window, we saw a convoy of cars pulling up, neighbors, reporters, maybe even more family. The HOA president herself stood on the sidewalk, phone in hand, wearing that expensive athleisure uniform of suburban power. Her expression was equal parts concern and curiosity, like she was watching a reality show filmed on her street. "This is bad," Maya muttered. Then came the hiss, a soft, unfamiliar sound. We both froze. Smoke began curling under the garage door, thin, gray, deliberate. "Oh my God," Maya whispered. The smell of gasoline hit seconds later. Someone had set the garbage bin beside the door on fire. We grabbed what we could, documents, the camcorder, Grandpa's cardigan, and sprinted through the side door as the smoke thickened. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, but the neighborhood had already gathered, watching like spectators at a bonfire. Phones were out, recording. I heard snippets of voices. "That poor girl." "You think she did it?" I knew something was off about her. Maya coughed, pulling me toward her car. The flames licked the siding of her garage, a living thing now, devouring everything in sight. As we ran, my phone vibrated in my pocket. A text, unknown number. Just a location pin and a message. "Tonight, 11:57 p.m. Come alone. Or the past burns with me. R. Ray, Grandpa alive, or someone pretending to be him. We made it to the hospital by noon. The corridors smelled like bleach and whispers. When I saw him, Grandpa, his face was half hidden beneath tubes and tape. Machines beeped in the quiet rhythm of borrowed time. I touched his hand. It was warm but fragile, the strength that once commanded courtrooms now flickering like a dying candle. A nurse hovered near the door, her voice soft. "He's been in and out. Sometimes he tries to speak, but we can't make out the words." I leaned close. "Grandpa, it's me," I whispered. His eyelids fluttered. For a terrifying moment, the monitor flatlined. A single, unending tone filled the room, and the nurse lunged for the crash button. But then, miraculously, his chest rose again. His heart found its beat. His eyes opened, just a sliver, and locked on mine. His lips moved, barely forming sound. One word escaped, faint but certain, proof. Then the monitor's rhythm steadied. The nurse exhaled in relief. I stepped back, trembling, my reflection trembling in the polished metal of the bed rail. Proof. What proof? The documents? The USB? Or something deeper? Something I hadn't found yet? Outside, the sunset was bleeding red into the sky. Maya was waiting by the exit, eyes wide. "What did he say?" she asked. I looked out at the skyline of our perfect, poisoned town. He said, "Proof." and as the first stars flickered above the cul-de-sac, I knew exactly where I'd have to go next. The old mill by the river, the place this town was born. The place where its secrets would finally start to die. The old mill by the river looked like something time had given up on. A crooked skeleton of wood and rust, its windows hollowed out like the eye sockets of something long dead. The night was heavy, the kind that swallowed sound. At exactly 11:57 p.m., I stood at its gates, the water below black and still, reflecting only the moon like an unblinking eye. The cold wind cut through my jacket, carrying the smell of river mud and metal. Every instinct screamed for me to turn back. But the message had been clear: come alone. Of course, Maya didn't listen. She followed a block behind, camera rolling, her breath forming clouds in the air. "If they bury this, we won't let them," she'd said earlier, slipping a small mic into her hoodie. "You go, I'll be your shadow." I didn't argue. I was too tired to. The mill door creaked open with a reluctant groan. Inside, the air was damp, thick with dust and mildew. The beams groaned above me like bones. One single work light hung from a nail, swinging lazily, throwing slow circles of light across the concrete floor. Beneath that cone of light stood a man with his back turned, broad shoulders, cardigan, hospital bracelet still wrapped around one wrist. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. "Grandpa?" He turned, Ray Carter, pale, thinner, but alive. His eyes glowed with the kind of fury that could set a courtroom on fire. He smiled, but it wasn't warmth, it was purpose. "Did you bring it?" he asked, voice gravel against glass. I lifted the camcorder. "Everything's here," he nodded once. "Then we end it tonight." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folder. The papers inside were yellowed and creased, stained with time and truth. Photos spilled out, sliding across the floor. Boardroom pictures, wire transfers, bank receipts, each one a nail in a coffin. There was even a platinum card receipt from a Miami nightclub signed B. Carter. Dates matched perfectly with the scholarship withdrawals. I froze when my eyes fell on the last photo. A woman, standing by the same river behind us, pregnant, smiling through tears. My mother, Lily. Before I could speak, the sound of footsteps cut through the silence, measured, deliberate. Uncle Brent emerged from the darkness, face half in shadow. Behind him came Thomas, his bandaged hand glinting under the light, and then Aunt Sloane, perfume hitting the air like poison. From the doorway, even the HOA president crept in, eyes gleaming with morbid curiosity. The whole neighborhood's rot had gathered to watch its own autopsy. "Dad," Brent said quietly, his tone almost gentle. "Let's go home." Ray didn't move. "Home burned down the day you took Lily to that office." My throat tightened. "You took her?" I asked, voice barely a whisper. Brent's mouth twitched into that fake smile he wore for charity galas. "She was confused," he said. "She misread the numbers." "Numbers don't bruise," Ray snapped. "Numbers don't cry for help," his voice cracked. "She called me from that stairwell, Brent. She was scared." "And you told her the river could wash anything away." Thomas's voice trembled. "She fell, didn't she?" Ray turned slowly, eyes burning holes into him. "No, son, she ran." "She ran with Ava. I found her first." The words hit me like thunder. "Ran with me?" I stepped forward, dizzy. "You mean she's alive?" A sound came from the darkest corner of the mill. Soft. A breath. Then a figure stepped forward. A woman, her hair streaked with silver, her eyes the exact same shade as mine. For a second, the world stopped spinning. "Mom?" Lily. She looked fragile and radiant all at once. Her hands trembled as she reached for me, fingers tracing the edge of my face like she was memorizing it. "I wanted to come back," she whispered, voice breaking. But Ray said no. He told me to stay gone until he could fix everything. "He lied to me too," Brent laughed, a small, cruel sound that echoed in the rafters. "A family reunion." "Touching," he said coldly. "Too bad it's too late." He gestured, and from the shadows, 2 men in suits appeared. Black gloves, earpieces, no badges. "Private security. Bought loyalty." Maya's voice sliced through the silence. "Smile for the camera." Her phone light flared to life, cutting across the darkness. "We're live," she said, voice trembling but defiant. 10,000 people watching. Brent froze. Aunt Sloane hissed. Thomas took a shaky step back, the confidence draining from his face. "You're bluffing," Brent growled. "Try me," Maya said, her camera unflinching. Ray held up the camcorder. This, he said, is a full confession. Yours, your transactions, your threats. And I've already sent a copy to 3 attorneys. His voice hardened. But there's something you don't know. He looked at me. There's one more secret left. Before I could ask, a noise erupted above us, a heavy thud, followed by the sound of boots striking the metal rafters. A woman's voice rolled down, strong, commanding, filled with authority. Correction, she said. There are 2 secrets. Every head turned upward as flashlights cut through the rafters. The door exploded open and floodlights poured into the mill like daylight breaking through hell. Men and women in navy windbreakers stormed in, their jackets marked with 3 white letters that froze everyone in place. FBI chaos unfolded. Brent tried to run, but an agent pinned him to the ground. Sloan screamed. Thomas backed away, stammering prayers. The HOA president tried to slip out quietly, but was immediately cuffed. Maya's camera shook as she filmed the whole thing, her face streaked with tears and triumph. Ray didn't move. In the middle of the storm, he turned to me, calm as the river outside. From his coat, he pulled out a small sealed envelope and pressed it into my hand. His fingers were shaking now. Keep this safe, he whispered. This is the truth they could never bury. I looked down. The envelope was smaller than a postcard, heavier than it should have been. Inside, I could feel the shape of a ring. And something flat, paper. When I tore it open later in the back of an FBI van, I would see the words that shattered everything I thought I knew. A paternity test, and the name listed under father would be the last one I ever expected. By sunrise, the old mill had transformed from a forgotten ruin into the epicenter of national news. Police tape fluttered like yellow ribbons in the wind. Reporters clustered by the riverbank, shouting into microphones as if my family's destruction were a public holiday. Helicopters droned overhead. The Carter Foundation's website had crashed under a wave of outrage, and the neighborhood message boards, those self-righteous little echo chambers, were on fire. Every neighbor who once bragged about knowing us now claimed they'd always suspected something. By 9 a.m., I was sitting inside a sterile federal conference room that smelled of burnt coffee and new carpet. Agent Morales, the woman who led the raid, sat across from me. She had sharp eyes, the kind that saw everything but never blinked. She slid a legal pad across the table, her tone calm but firm. We've got enough evidence to bury them, she said. Shell companies, offshore accounts, the siphoned scholarship money. We have recorded threats, falsified tax filings, and statements from multiple witnesses. All we need now is your testimony. Beside me sat Grandpa Ray, my grandfather, my father, my protector, and my liar. His hand trembled slightly as it covered mine, but his grip was still reassuring, the same steady pressure that had once silenced entire courtrooms. On his other side sat my mother, Lily, alive and fragile, the woman I had spent my life believing was dead. Every time I looked at her, my chest tightened with something between joy and grief. She kept glancing toward Ray, her expression soft but complicated, as if forgiveness and fury were fighting behind her eyes. But none of them knew what I had found inside that envelope. It was in my pocket now, the ring and the paper folded around it like a wound I couldn't close. Every second that passed, I felt it burn hotter against my skin. Agent Morales looked up at the clock. It's midnight somewhere, she said with a faint smile. That means the Carter will has officially gone into effect. You should know what that means for you. Ray coughed into his hand, his voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. Ava, he said gently. The will doesn't just make you trustee. He hesitated, eyes glistening. It makes you owner of the Carter estate, the mansion, the assets, the controlling vote of the foundation, and the entire family trust. The words landed like a verdict. My throat closed up. I hadn't asked for this. I didn't want it. Maya, who sat in the corner still holding her camera, whispered, You own the table now. I shook my head. You don't understand, I said softly. There's something else. I pulled the folded paper from my pocket and placed it on the table. Before the FBI came, Grandpa gave me this. The room quieted. Ray's face went pale. Lily looked at me with sudden dread. Agent Morales reached for the document. The sound of unfolding paper was deafening. Her eyes skimmed the words once, then again. Her brows drew together. Parent-child match, Thomas Carter. The air seemed to leave the room. Ray exhaled sharply, closing his eyes. Maya covered her mouth. I couldn't look at anyone. I just stared at the floor, where the truth seemed to echo. Thomas, my cousin. The boy who mocked me, filmed me, hated me. My cousin was my father. Agent Morales broke the silence first. We already verified the DNA results this morning. They're legitimate. Lily began to cry quietly, her voice breaking through the tension like shattered glass. Thomas was 16, she whispered. He didn't know. I didn't know. I was drugged at one of Brent's parties. They told me I'd embarrassed the family. They told me to disappear. We thought it was Brent or one of his friends. Thomas was a child used as leverage. He never knew what they did to me. The horror hit me in waves. My anger at Thomas, my disgust, my hatred, all of it warped into something else. Pity. He was another victim of their cruelty, just like me. Through the glass wall of the conference room, I saw him in the next room, handcuffed, slumped in a chair. He was crying, his face red, muttering words I couldn't hear. The monster I'd hated all my life looked small now, broken. Ray's hand squeezed mine again. This is why I lied, he said, voice trembling. I wanted to end the rot before it consumed you. I tried to protect you the only way I knew how. Agent Morales closed the folder and stacked the files neatly. Brent and Sloan will serve federal time. The HOA president will face obstruction charges. Chief Danner's resignation goes public at noon. She looked at me. As for you, Ava, you decide what comes next. The money, the estate, the narrative. It's yours. I nodded slowly. Then I'll tell the truth, I said. Every word. That afternoon, I stood on the courthouse steps, facing a forest of microphones and cameras. The entire cul-de-sac watched live, faces pressed to phone screens and living room TVs. I told them everything, the theft, the lies, the abuse, the money, the will. I spoke about Lily, about Ray's deception, about the scholarship money that would now go where it always should have. Then I held up the ring, a simple gold band. This belonged to the woman who gave me life, I said. And now it belongs to every child who's been told they don't. I announced the creation of the Lily House, a shelter and scholarship center built inside the Carter mansion. The table that once excluded people, I said, voice steady, will now feed them. That night, we returned home, me, Lily, Ray, and Maya. The grand dining room was the same as it had always been. Polished wood, chandeliers, ghosts in the corners, but it felt different. Lighter. Maya placed 2 chipped bowls at the head of the table because the fine china felt dishonest. Lily lit a candle. Ray laughed softly, then coughed until he cried. I pulled out the gold-embossed name card with Ava Carter printed on it. Slowly, I tore it in half. We ate pie from the pan at the head of the table. No pretense, no masks, just us. Later, my phone buzzed. A message from Thomas, sent from the youth facility where he'd been moved for counseling instead of prison. I'm sorry. I didn't know. I'll testify. I stared at the screen for a long time before typing back, tell the truth. That's all I want. When I stepped outside, the neighborhood looked the same. Perfect lawns, perfect fences, perfect lies. But something fundamental had shifted. The ground beneath this town finally felt solid, as if it had stopped pretending. A car pulled up. A foster care worker stepped out with a small boy clutching a garbage bag full of clothes. This is Daniel, she said softly. He's staying with you. I knelt, smiled, and opened the door wide. Welcome home, I told him. Your seat is at the head.